Welcome to the Macdownunder Podcast for all Australian Apple computer enthusiasts and collectors.
Welcome to episode 8 of the Macdownunder Podcast. Hello, I'm Justin, and thanks to all that have tuned in so far and left comments. Our last episode had a great response, and thank you to everyone that provided feedback either through the Facebook postings or directly on the YouTube video itself. So please keep commenting below to help us improve and let us know what you'd like us to discuss in future episodes. So I've been thinking that we've been talking a lot about my experiences over the last couple of episodes in particular. So this time we're going to turn the tables and we're going to focus on Matthew's experience in setting up the Mac Museum. And we'll also cover recent for sale ads and coming events as well in the episode. So to introduce my co-host Matthew, who's going to talk about the museum, but first, how are you and how is your week?
Hey JD, g'day everybody. I'm doing really well, thank you. It's not been a very exciting week of the last little while, but I've just been prepping for the museum, which is opening this Saturday. So making sure everything's clean and tidy and in its right spot. I spend the time in between museum openings often just fooling around with stuff. So there's a few things that need to be put back into place. So that's what's kept me busy this last week, JD. What about you?
Yeah, well, I didn't think much was going to happen, but actually quite a bit did. I mean, obviously, it was great to see all the viewer comments, and I've replied to a few of those and put some links to things, even from previous episodes as well. So that was great. And also great to see that some people are picking things up from our for sale section. Speaking of which, we talked about a $5 Apple Pro keyboard a couple of weeks ago, and no one had bought it, so I did. I actually said I would in the episode. Yep. But when it was still there, I thought, what the heck, gave the seller a call and went down and picked it up. So that was fantastic. $5, beautiful keyboard.
That's great. Nice.
So that was good. I started digging through my Apple II cards. I think looking at the listings of the various Rev Zero Apple II boards sort of got the juices flowing. And so I've taken some photos of some of the older, more rare Apple II cards that I've got. So those that are on the Apple II card channel on Facebook will see those, but they're also on my Macdownunder website. So if you want to have a look, go and have a look at that. I'll put the link in the comments below. There was a cheap titanium G4 PowerBook. Photos looked great, condition completely unknown, and pretty much the other side of town to me, so a fair journey, 2-hour trip to go and pick it up and 2 hours back again, but well worth it. I plugged it in, powered up, went into Tiger, so 10.4.11 I think it was that I saw, working like a dream, and I'm just waiting to see if the battery's going to hold any charge. It looks like it might hold a little bit. So that was a fantastic score. So thank you for the seller who's really helpful with that. And my big news of today is that the ITT 2020 that I shipped from Germany arrived this morning. So I've unpacked it, had a quick play, and I'll probably bring it down to the museum, I think, on Saturday, unless there's something else you need me to do. So it's actually been an interesting week from a collecting point of view, although none of that was really planned. So there you go.
Oh, that's the best part of this. It's the stuff that's not planned that pops up, which
well, it makes it exciting, doesn't it?
Yes.
Right. So we should get on to today's topic. So in talking to some of the regulars that are down at the museum, and I suspect we'll see them on Saturday as well, quite a few of us have actually thought about opening a museum of our own in the past. And in fact, in my case, I even bought a house that had a shop attached to it back in 1998. So it's going back a while. In fact, my collection was stored there for, 17 or so years. So in honour of this episode, and for me, a little bit of nostalgia, I asked ChatGPT to make the shop look like perhaps what it might have been if it was ever turned into a museum. But sadly, in my case, we sold the house in 2015, and that was that. My machines went into storage, and now in my fairly large garage. But Matt, you've actually successfully opened a museum, and that's how I met you. In fact, was through the first open day, and what a magnificent place it is. I've snaffled some photos off your website to give people an idea, but if people want to have a further look, the about pages on the museum web pages are really helpful. So fantastic looking museum, Matt, and you can see it in the background, obviously, because you're there at the moment. So
yes.
what's the difference?
Thanks, Ted.
How did you get it over the line? I guess, let's start off with motivation, because a few of us have had the motivation but just haven't got it there. So can you tell us what motivated you to open the museum?
Yeah, look, for me, the motivation behind opening the museum was to get stuff that I had available for other people to be able to look at it. That's it in a nutshell. If I was to sum it up real quickly, real concisely. But one of the technology market vintage meetups that I attended and saw a whole heap of stuff, Apple stuff and lots of other stuff too, but a whole heap of Apple stuff that I'd never seen before. Apple III was one of the featured machines that I was able to catch, and I thought this is fantastic. I was really excited about it. I was there with my dad, I was there with my son, so we all got to check this stuff out. And I thought there's got to be other people out there like me that would be interested in being able to check out some of this stuff that might not have the opportunity to go and play with for me as I was growing up. It was really about saying, hey, I reckon it'd be cool to be able to open a space that other people could come and check out some of this stuff too.
Yeah, and well, you were right. There are lots of people, and we saw them at the last open day. I'm sure we'll see them again on Saturday that are seriously interested in having a look and a play. But obviously, there's a lot of logistics. So in my case, I got to purchasing a house that happened to have a shop. That was convenient for me, but even more logistics around, the site, setting it up, the layout. There's a lot involved. So when did you seriously start thinking about the logistics and, putting, I guess, the pedal to the metal to get it going?
Yeah. So when I attended this swap meet, I think that one was early. I can tell you it was early 2020 because it was right before the world experienced COVID. So it was very very early 2020, and I'd always had this plan for my future that I was going to be able to have some sort of space to get something up and running in. So back early days, it was going to be potentially like a mechanic or a workshop that I might start up. But after attending this swap meet and after giving it a lot of thought, I thought, using the space as a museum for Apple stuff, I thought would be really cool. So it was then that I just started the hunt for somewhere, a location, so somewhere to actually set up. And I think from the get-go, I'd always had the idea that it was going to be a warehouse or a factory of some type, just to provide a bit of flexibility and what could take place there.
Sure. Okay. Well, that was going to be my next question. So, what did you have in mind? So you've just said factory, but what about location and size and, how did all of that come together?
Yeah. So I have to admit a lot of those things just sort of came together based on availability and affordability. So I thought I'm going to do the absolute best that I can do with whatever I've got the ability to secure. So for me, where the Mac Museum is set up in Somerville, I live 4 minutes away. So there was a proximity aspect to being able to get there regularly, come down to the museum. So just being close to home was important. So from a location perspective, the actual location itself, I actually had my brother-in-law tip me off that there were some warehouses that were about to be under construction. There was a vacant large block of land which was opposite his workplace, so he gave me the tip off. I had looked for other places, and you start to have a look at established buildings which cost many hundreds of thousands of dollars into the millions of dollars depending on the location. that you're going to pick. But I don't have those resources to be able to do that. So coming back to just buying something that was sort of within my capability, had me inquire about these warehouses that were going to be built, and I ended up securing one.
Fantastic, and it's a great location. Well set up, and I keep raving about it, but I better move on. Yeah. So talking of finances, I mean, I don't want you to go into details. That's not necessary, but we all spend a fair bit on our collection. We've talked about the Sotheby's auctions of hundreds of thousands of dollars for some machines. The PowerBook I picked up just recently was $20. So we all buy things at various price points. How did you make the decision? Talk us through investing in a property and its outfit versus your collection, because I'm trying to get shelving to help make my space a bit more amenable, but then I want to buy this, and I want to buy, there's gaps in my collection, and something pops up, or there's an iPod that's cheap, and maybe I'm just not organised, but I'll go for the shiny thing that's right in front of me. Talk us through how you made the decision about, funding a museum, fitting it out the way you have, which is, clearly you had a view, which we'll talk to, your aesthetic. How did you make the sort of, your investment decisions around that?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question, because I was, and I always am faced with, setting up, I was faced with the question of having a really good space with very little to display, or lots to display with nowhere to display it. So it was working out for me personally, getting the museum up and open with stuff in it was top priority. So rather than investing a large sum of money in something which might be incredibly hard to get a hold of, I personally wanted to get stuff on display to start with, which was reasonably commonplace. There are things that I would look through in Apple catalogs and just want to check it out. So, I mentioned the Apple III previously. For me, that is, at the end of the scale of something which is harder to obtain if you're just looking casually like we do through Facebook and Marketplace. You don't see many Apple IIIs come up. That's probably one of the items that sort of was I won't say an exception, but an opportunity which I couldn't pass up when that came about. But I also just wanted to be able to put stuff on display, like some people will probably laugh at these things, but just an Apple adjustable keyboard. Had never seen one. So when I was able to get one of those, which was very kindly donated to me, I thought that's great. And I've put that on display, and the amount of attention that it has drawn from people coming to check out the museum, and then just see that keyboard. It's the same sort of feeling I had when I saw it in a catalog, and now it's here on display. But an Apple adjustable keyboard is not very rare. I don't think we would consider. So in summary, first up was getting stuff on display, even the more common stuff, because that's also the stuff that people themselves experienced when they were at school, which is at school or in the workplace or in their home growing up. Well, nostalgia is a big driver to getting people interested in what's going on here at Mac Museum.
And certainly I've heard that. I'm sure you've heard that in the comments on your open days in the museum. And reflecting back on last week's episode and the VCF festival, it was very much the comments I was getting about the exhibit I had was, I remember that from school, I remember that from uni, and I might have mentioned that the fact that it was an Apple III Plus and not an Apple III made no difference to anyone. It was it was more about there's an Apple III. So I think you were very wise. Did you do any sort of focus group, or do you ask around what people were interested in before you sort of set your sights on what you wanted to have on display?
Short answer, no. So I've really started out by displaying the stuff that I thought, if I was walking into a museum, what I would want to see. And again, keeping in mind it's a it's a hands-on space. So, which I think we'll talk about a bit later on. But as I was getting things set up and starting to put some photos online and getting the exhibit set up on the benches and tables down here, I did start to realize that there are people that will come in and have absolutely no interest in some of the 90s beige stuff and just go straight to the colorful stuff. And the opposite, they won't even get down to the colorful stuff, which is towards the back of the museum here. They'll just stick with the beige stuff, which is close to the front. A lot of it's here in a somewhat chronological order. So in one regard, I always love getting feedback for what people want to see and what they're excited about when they come in. But I think if I had listened to just one or two people, I could have ended up with a museum full of iMac G3s, for example. So I took the approach of saying, look, I've got a broad interest. I'll start by getting as much as the whole 80s, 90s, and noughties era on display as I can, and take it from there.
And there is something to say that it's your museum, and you're quite entitled to do what you like. Very much the Steve Jobs approach of I know what I like. No, that's fantastic. And so the interior design I've talked about a couple of times, but the current interior design looks fantastic. We can see elements of it in the background there. And we've sort of talked about the workstation and that sort of getting everything together idea before. But just in terms of the floor plan and walls and carpets and tables and all those sorts of things, did you have that in mind? Was that part of your vision, or is that something that just sort of happened organically? Tell us a little bit about the interior fit out and how that came about.
Yeah. So I think just for some context here is that I mentioned that I'd secured the museum location. So and as I mentioned, it was paddocks, just empty land. So there was a build process, and initially I was told I think I secured it in it was early 2021, I think, and I was told it was going to be ready by the end of the year. So I ambitiously even put up on the website Mac Museum opening 2022. So and then they'd end up getting scratched and opening 2023 and opening 2024. So time went on while this actual development was delayed. So that gave me a lot of time to spend on SketchUp to actually work out, hey, how am I going to get things set up in here? So I spent a massive amount of time in SketchUp doing many different layout and floor plan designs. So there was a lot of time that I had to sort of play around with different ideas, which was good. When it came time to actually starting to put everything together, it was good to be able to come and walk in the space and make sure what I'd sort of put together on SketchUp was, reasonable. I made some tweaks and then really just started focusing on trying to, again, make selections for what I could do to get the place open within an affordable kind of price point as well. So, for example, some of the tables that I purchased, I bought 25 of them from an office building that was about to be demolished and was just in clear out phase. So, if you spend some time having a look at furniture, you can spend, you could spend put in a number here. I wasn't going to be able to get the nice benches that Apple have, but you could say $500 a table, $1,000 a table. I was able to pick the tables up for $50 each. So that was more about saying, okay, I need to find something affordable. When you're buying, 20 or 30 of something, the smaller the number, the better. So it was really just about saying, looking for opportunities to get stuff which would fit nicely and, be quite affordable.
Well, they certainly look the part. You wouldn't know necessarily that, they were a bargain deal that you've done with somebody. They absolutely look the part. Do you want to
Yeah,
talk us
thanks.
through some of the other elements of the design of the facility? Because it's not just the museum that we walk in. There's other bits that you've
Mm.
got and other considerations you had to put in place. Do you want to talk us through some of those?
Yeah, so part of the work I was doing, sort of, trying to build out the design was to also accommodate things like storage for things which aren't going to be on display. So, like someone said to me, a museum, doesn't always have all of its stuff on display all of the time. So, that was, yeah, having somewhere to store things was going to be important. Um, like I've spoken to in the past, and we've discussed, JD. Things need fixing, so having a workshop space was also going to be really important. To have an area where things could be pulled apart and um, left for a period of time while parts arrived or donor machines were sourced. So having a workshop area that could be closed off and separated from the rest of the museum space, the exhibit space, and then some of the things like just having a foyer area for people to walk into, and an office area for some of the the sit down desk work to be conducted that the museum needs as well. There's some of the other considerations that I had. Initially, I should have mentioned this earlier on. The plan was to get a mezzanine installed from the get go. So, as people walk into the museum, one of the comments I often get is, "Hey, you should put a mezzanine in." And I thought, yes, I'd love to put a mezzanine in. That would be great. It's in the plan. But when I discovered, installing a mezzanine was going to be a 30, 40, $50,000 exercise. Before you'd even made it sort of pretty, I thought I'm going to have to park that for the moment. But yeah, the which was also one of the sort of pivots I had to take on some of the work I was doing for the original layout and design.
Yeah, well, you do have to cut your cloth sometimes, don't you?
Yeah,
Which is a shame. Given everything that you've got going on, it is an obvious conversation that I think a lot of us have had with you over the time. And of
yes,
course, there's the practicalities of toilets and so forth that you've got there as well. Which, if people are
yes.
thinking about opening something like this, it's certainly something you need to think about. We've talked about it before. Tea, coffee, drinks, food. What's your position on that?
Yeah, look, there's one thing which is in conflict with offering beverages and food, is that you want to keep the exhibits food and beverage free from any accidents that might take place. So I've deliberately taken the approach of not offering anything, and also actually advertising that please don't bring things, food and drink into the museum. Kindly ask that people don't do that. Just one less thing that I need to then worry about. But one of the very early openings, there was in fact, JD, I think you might have been here when this was said, but you might recall. But my wife turned to some of the other attendees that had come in that weren't here under choice, but maybe under sufferance, and said, she'll look at opening up the Mac Museum wine bar when the mezzanine's installed, so down the track for other people to chill out at. But I think it's something that would be great down the track. But yeah, immediately I had to draw the line on that.
So back to the interior. Shop fit out can be really expensive, particularly if you're using a commercial provider. So how did you go about that?
Oh golly, well. Everything that has been done at the museum has been DIY. So I've actually done it myself, except for the critical things which have safety involved which is the electrical. So I can remember, essentially starting with a blank canvas, which the warehouse space was. I remember sitting there one day and just thought, okay, well, let's get to it. Let's start ordering some timber. So there was a lot of time spent again in the run up while I was waiting for the factory space to be constructed, of looking at YouTube DIY tutorials on things like plastering, which is absolutely horrible, and I hope I don't have to do that again. Just painting techniques and trimming techniques and things like that. But I got started. I ordered the many thousands of dollars worth of framing timber and just got going. So I called on experience from friends and family who would be able to just provide some guidance. I'm very cautious when it comes to things. So saying, hey, should I be bolting this into the floor 6 times and being told no, two is absolutely sufficient and well beyond standards. So I was like, okay, cool. So it was really just sort of getting to it, and it was about 6 odd months of just chipping away at it evenings, outside of after I'd finished the day job and on weekends. And there were some times which really tested me. Again, the plasterboard work and plastering is not great, and the amount of dust that I made was just incredible. So it wasn't an enjoyable experience at times, but when I was able to stand back and look and go, gosh, I've done this myself. It was it was good and saved a massive amount of money doing it as well. So.
Well, I'm sure it's satisfying, and obviously the bottom line, it always helps. But what a massive commitment, not just financially to have the place, but to spend that amount of time, learn those extra skills that got nothing to do with the machines that you love necessarily. Helps you with the next reno at home, I suppose.
Golly, yes.
But what a huge commitment. So you've already mentioned the mezzanine. So clearly this isn't the final design. But what else is in your vision for the future?
So look, I think a lot of us admire the aesthetic that that Apple have of their retail stores. So as time goes on, I'd like to try to sort of imitate that more. So some nice benches, higher benches. One thing, just back to my table selection, was realizing that to accommodate a CRT on a table and have a nice amount of space for keyboard and mouse to be able to put the software alongside, like I've talked about doing, required sort of deep tables and benches. So there's, I think, some of the current Apple aesthetic and or decisions around some of their furniture, which wouldn't accommodate some of their older technology, I've learned. But fine tuning that would be great. The mezzanine's the big one. I think once I've got a position to once I'm able to put a mezzanine in, then I can expand the floor space substantially and accommodate more more sort of featured setups as well, which would be great. Dedicate, more space. For example, the Apple II range. I'd love to be able to expand that substantially, or then just dedicate to, the iMac G3 range, for example. We see them obviously all above me at the moment, while we're chatting here, but to be able to get more of those on display so people could really experience things side by side. I think that's a really good thing to be able to do as well. So people can come in and sit down and, do something on one and then do something on the other, similar machines, but check out what the actual differences were. So
it was interesting.
Space.
It was interesting at VCF. People just wanted to touch the Lisa or touch the Apple III in particular. The others I didn't care too much about. So I think, for some of those things, as you say, there's people are reminiscing and they want to be able to touch things. I think that's one of the other pieces around an active museum like the one that you've got that helps with that interaction. And when they're up on a shelf, it's more difficult to do that. In terms of layout of the space, you sort of touched on that a moment ago. What were your decisions around laying out the machines in particular?
Once you start laying things out, space is used up pretty quickly. So, one thing I've tried to do is give things some space around them so that they're enjoyed and not sort of crammed and cluttered on a table. It's it means then that you're not going to be able to show as much as what might be out there. So there's again, sort of starting from the position of stuff that I wanted to be able to experience. That was the initial sort of setup. And, I know that I didn't get that quite right in a couple of areas. I put a lot of beige stuff out to begin with, and, quickly had some feedback about, what people wanting to see, some of the late 90s and noughties stuff that Apple had put out, the post Jobs return, the Jobs return era. So, I've made some adjustments there as I'd gone along as well. So there's, it's a very hard decision to make. I started out with more Apple II stuff on display and wound that back a bit because it wasn't getting as much interest as some of the later 80s stuff I found as well. So which was a bit of a surprise, to be honest.
And you do need space. So, I think from almost the first day, the first open day, people were getting involved in the Tetris game in particular on the first day, from what I remember, and other games since I get involved in. I think Galaga and some of the others are what I prefer. But you need space if people are going to gather around and participate, and whether it's a game or whether you're looking at Premiere or any of the other pieces of software, you need that space for people, don't you?
Yeah, look, and that's one of the other considerations which was really important to me was the accessibility side of things as well. So I've tried to make sure that there are large gaps in between the tables that have the exhibits, so that if anyone came down, it's wheelchair accessible as best that I can do as well. So I want to be able to create a space that as many people can come down to as possible. And that means, some maneuverability. Even if it's just a group of people, clustering around a particular machine, other people have to still be able to get around them. So, it's a fine balance between, having too much and it becoming very congested, and not having enough and it being too airy.
Now, we've spoken about it a few times today, and we've certainly spoken about it in the past, that your intention is very much hands-on, working machines, letting people play their games or do whatever things they want to do on the machines to reminisce in some cases or learn. Some of us, me in particular, would be worried about some of our rare machines being used by, the general public that have come into the museum, potentially without supervision. Tell me your thoughts about public accessibility, because I think you've got a different point of view.
Yeah, look, I do try to have as much stuff available for people to actually touch and play. So again, one of the sort of running changes I made was separating the stuff which can actually be used and played with and is generally running when the museum opens, is off to one side, and the other more static displays are off to another. But there are some things that I will I'll float around on museum days, and if I can see someone might be going a little bit too far with handling something, I'll politely just draw their attention to the reasons why. So it's not just telling somebody off, but saying, hey, here's why we've got to be careful of of these era machines with the plastics in particular. But yes, that's all right. So that's it. So, but there's some lines that I'd draw. So people people have come in and opened boxes of software and start putting things around, and everyone's been very respectful, which has been good. So. That's I'm okay with that. But look, I want to make the stuff here so people can enjoy it and use it. So all going well, that position doesn't change. And I know that they're potentially down the track, and JD, I've been very, very grateful that you've brought some of the much rarer items down, such as the Lisa, for example. There are some things which just realistically would need to be monitored more closely if they would come down. Not because anyone's going to do anything malicious, but just because of the inherent fact that, if something does need to be replaced, it is big dollars.
So I guess that does touch on the security issue, and not necessarily of the people who are coming in, because usually, there's a few of us around to look after things and answer questions and so forth. But just the security of the facility, when it's not open, for example, must be a concern. Don't go into too much detail. We don't want to give away any secrets. But what are your thoughts around the security?
Yeah, look, that's taken care of. I think to a level which I'm happy with and keeps me sleeping at night. But there's a number of measures that are in place there, which is good. But it certainly, getting to a position that I could sleep at night took a lot of thought and a lot of work behind as well. So it's absolutely something that had to be considered.
So we've talked a fair bit about the interaction with the computers and having a place for people to admire and use them. Do you have any other plans for the museum that's sort of Apple related?
Being able to use this space as a gathering space for just like-minded enthusiasts, I think would be fantastic. That's one of the ambitions that I've got with Mac Museum, is that it is just a place for people to come and hang out and enjoy the company of other people that you can have chats with, learn from. Like I've said many times, as I don't know everything about Apple. So, having people come in and being able to talk with them is great. So having it as a space which could even then extend to, seminars and workshops. JD, you helped put on a talk earlier in the year when you brought the Lisa down and spoke to about a couple of machines. If it would be great if the interest is there for more of those things to take place as well. Workshops on service work as well is something which I always think about, because enthusiasts are there trying to keep this stuff running and want to learn how to do that as well. So that would be cool, as well as offering other stuff like Mac Museum merch. That would be cool as well, maybe down the track, and and sort of expanding on sales of machines too. So there's a long list. There's a lot there.
Plenty to do. And look, I've absolutely enjoyed the open days and meeting some of the regulars that we're seeing through the doors now, and catching up on just each other's collections, and then other things that are happening. Has been a great environment and very welcoming to everybody, I think, which has been fantastic. So, so today you've told us about your plans for the museum and finding the site, actually physically constructing the interior and the layout, which is a huge effort, let alone actually making the collection itself and finding those pieces and getting them working so that people have got access to working machines. It's a huge effort you've obviously put in so far, and a big commitment to sign up for into the future. Where do you find the time?
Well, firstly, very supportive family that does let me wander down to the museum to put time into keeping it running. I've got a day job as well, so it's it's using the time, evenings, weekends, which you can find the hours quickly disappear once you're trying to tackle something. But it is really using every spare minute that I can to repair, rearrange, reorganize, do social media stuff. It's a busy lifestyle. I'll say that. So if you're thinking of taking on a museum or opening one yourself, just make sure you have heaps of spare time. So.
Very good. Well, thank you for sharing at least part of the story. I know there's plenty of other stories to share, and we can probably do that in future episodes too. But thank you for sharing with everyone watching today, and with me too, to find out a bit more about the thinking behind the museum. It continues to be a mammoth effort. And I think we can see the strength of your commitment just in what we've spoken about so far, let alone everything else that you're doing behind the scenes, which I think must be the key to the success and the difference between your museum and our aspirations in other places. Any final thoughts for anyone that might be thinking, that's watching and might be thinking about opening a museum?
Yeah, look, it's like I said, time is a big one. Obviously there's the cost side of things, but the time commitment is big as well. But I've had people come down and talked about not necessarily their Apple collections of other stuff, and I'm encouraging. I'd encourage them to. I point to other facilities in the complex here that are for lease, and I say, you take that one. That one can be the Commodore Museum. That one can be the IBM Museum. So I do be sensible and make sure that you really assess the cost aspect of things, and do the business case for it and make sure that it's you can support it. But I'd be happy to talk with people that are thinking about doing the same thing. Happy to help where I can on that side of things too.
Gee, it sounds like it's a Vintage Computer Consortium and a campus of their own is what I can see out of that conversation.
Yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. Thanks, you can see the fruits of Matt's labour this weekend, because the next open day is this Saturday, the 2nd of August, from 10 until 4 in Somerville. We'll talk about it later on in the show as well. Matt will obviously be there, and I hope to be there. I can't see why I won't be.
Great.
And there'll be a whole range of other Apple computer enthusiasts there as well, as there has been in the past. So it would be great to see everyone that's watching our show up there as well. Let us know if you've had thoughts about opening a museum, or you'd really like to go to one and you've got some thoughts about what you would like to see at a museum, Matt's or others. We'd love to hear. So please let us know down in the comments. And if you've been motivated by today's discussion with Matthew and all the work he's done and his vision, please let us know about that as well. And I'm sure Matt would be interested to have a chat to you if you're not able to get to the open day on Saturday. And of course, let us know about our show and any improvements we can make, and any conversations you'd like us to have in the future. It would be great to hear from you down in the comments. So on to the recent news in Apple collecting. I guess this is the one post that I saw come through just the other day that I thought was worth mentioning. So Canvas Fest obviously happened just recently, but they've actually released all of their presentations on YouTube. And so I'll put a link down in the description. Plenty of really interesting talks about Apple II, Apple IIc, current projects, software, and lots of reminiscing around their previous use of Apple II. So check out the Canvas Fest 2025 playlist.
Cool graphic as well. Michael Jackson discovering the treasures of KFest 2025 in that box.
Yeah, I suspect on an Apple IIgs screen by the looks of the resolution too.
Yes.
So on to coming events. So the Adelaide Retro Computing Group have their next regular meeting on Friday the 8th of August in the Unley Community Centre. Technology Markets, we mentioned just earlier, was the inspiration for Matthew opening the museum, it would appear. Their next market is the Sunday the 3rd of August, coming up in Reservoir, and according to their website, there's a follow-up one in Keysborough on the 10th of August. The Mac Museum itself, we've talked about it a fair bit today, but the next open day is this Saturday, August 2nd, from 10 until 4. Check out the link in the description for the other details. So this week's for sale, pretty much everything comes from Marketplace this week. I sort of followed the previous rules, so I checked around the country as best I could for things that were cheap. So much so that one of them's actually already been sold before we even recorded the session. So if you're interested in any of these products, I suggest you jump out there and buy them immediately, because I think they'll go pretty quickly. So we have an Apple iBook G4. You don't see these around terribly much now, and this one looks in fantastic condition. Obviously working from the photo there. Currently listed at $100 in Perth, so might be a bit of travel if you don't live nearby, but a fairly rare machine by all accounts now, and not a bad price for a working machine, Matt.
Very good. Hard to come by, like you said, JD.
Next up, we've got a fairly used but still interesting Apple external floppy drive. So this is the 400k floppy drive for the Mac 128k and 512. I presume you could plug it into a Plus and other things and it'd probably still work, but it was designed for the early generation Macintosh. $50 from New South Wales. Says it's untested, but again, these don't come up terribly often. And you never know, you might be able to clean it up a bit and give it a bit of a lube and hopefully it would start working. You're in the market for one of these, Matt?
For $50, I'd grab it if I was close by. So I hope it's gone by next week when we chat again.
We'll see. Next up, two Apple iSight webcams for $40. So $20 for an iCam. Now, that's cheaper than the one I just bought recently and drove halfway across Victoria to get. There's even the photos of the contents. So I think there's a couple of individual pieces missing, but between the two boxes, everything seems to be there. So you can mix and match as you like. Can't quite see the documentation, but that's normally tucked away in one of the foldable panels. But two cameras, $40. Don't think you can go wrong with that.
It's great. Very good.
Now, in the last episode, Matt referred to my security devices as inspired by the iPod Shuffle Generation 1, and they do look similar, slightly different in size. And as a result of that, I thought I couldn't resist putting an iPod Shuffle in the for sale section, and it came in fairly cheaply too. So this one is $30 in Roval. I happen to notice there's a couple of boxed first generation iPod Shuffles available on Marketplace as well. A bit more expensive than this one. So if you want a boxed one, go and have a look. But this one's still got its pendant accessory and the cable. That's unusual to find. Normally it's just the stick. So for $30, pretty complete. Not much can go wrong with these. Having said that, famous last words, other than the battery, they're a pretty good USB stick. That's what I use mine for most of the time.
That's it.
Next up, a nice cheap combo. Again, I couldn't resist putting this one up. So you've got the Apple Pro keyboard in white and the Pro mouse in black. So not necessarily two pieces that go together. They'll certainly work together. But for $10, that's an absolute bargain for those two items. So from Melbourne, if you're in the market for a USB keyboard or mouse, you can't go past that, I don't think.
That's great.
And finally, another cheapie, a Mighty Mouse, a cabled Mighty Mouse for $5. Again, also in Melbourne. But again, if you're looking for a USB mouse, Mighty Mouse is probably not the best USB mouse they ever made. There are others that are probably better, but they're pretty unique. And so if you haven't got a Mighty Mouse in your collection, $5 from this one in Melbourne. So Matt, that's the end of episode 8. We're getting to the double digits. It won't be long. We'll have to have a special celebration for that.
Yeah. Yes.
But thanks again so much for sharing your experiences in building the museum. Hopefully people have got a bit of motivation, if not to build their own museum, come and visit the Mac Museum on the Saturday the 2nd of August, this Saturday coming from 10 until 4. Again, if you've got any thoughts about the show today, please let us know down in the comments, and please let us know about anything you think we could improve on or topics for future weeks. Matt, any final words with the open day coming up?
No, just look forward to seeing you all down here on Saturday. It'll be great.
It will be. Look forward to seeing everybody there. Until then, and we'll be back again next week, but until then, take care. See you later.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining the Macdownunder Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you again soon.